At 82, I've experienced a lifetime of lessons, joys, and heartbreaks. Yet, in all my years, there remains one decision that still tugs at my heart. A choice I now deeply regret: moving into a nursing home. At the time, I was convinced that it was the right decision. My family, with their gentle insistence and loving concern, encouraged me to take that step, assuring me that I would finally receive all the care and comfort I deserved. I trusted them completely. I believed that this new place would be a sanctuary, a haven where my needs would be met and my well-being would be nurtured. But once I stepped through the doors, I soon realized that reality was far from the comforting picture I had imagined. I know that many of you who are watching might be contemplating this very option, whether for yourself or for someone you hold dear. Perhaps you're thinking it is the safest decision, or maybe you've been told that it will simplify life and provide security in old age. But before you decide to follow that path, I want to share with you 6 hard truths I wish someone had told me before I made that irreversible choice. The truth is, life in a nursing home is not merely a matter of convenience. It transforms every facet of your existence. And once you enter, retracing your steps and reclaiming the life you once knew is far more complicated than it appears. I remember the early days vividly. When I first arrived at the nursing home, I felt a strange mix of hope and trepidation. I had been reassured that the institution would provide a structure and support system to help me manage my day-to-day needs. In those first few days, I attempted to embrace the new environment, but it didn't take long before I began to notice the first of many losses that would soon come to define my experience there. One of the most profound losses was the disappearance of my independence. Before I moved in, I had always prided myself on the ability to direct my own life. I set my own routines, choosing when to wake, when to enjoy a leisurely breakfast, and when to step outside for a refreshing walk. Every morning, I looked forward to the simple pleasure of deciding my day's schedule, whether it was reading my favorite novel in the quiet of my living room or preparing a cup of tea just the way I liked it. I took comfort in knowing that every decision, however small, was mine to make. I could change plans on a whim, and nothing would stop me. However, life in the nursing home quickly revealed a different truth. My daily schedule was no longer mine to control. Every aspect of my day was dictated by a preset timetable, a schedule that I had no part in designing. Breakfast was served at a specific time, regardless of whether I felt hungry or not. Even something as fundamental as the time I woke up was no longer my own choice. The institution's routines took precedence over my personal rhythms. The very act of making simple decisions, what to wear, what to eat, or even when to take a walk, turned into a series of compromises. I found myself longing for the freedom of my previous life, where even the smallest choice carried the dignity of... I vividly recall my first week there. I woke up one morning in a bed that never quite felt like mine. The room, though clean and orderly, was devoid of the warmth and personal touches I had so lovingly accumulated over the years. My cherished books, a soft armchair that had witnessed countless quiet afternoons, and mementos from a life well lived had all been replaced by sterile walls and a standard issue bed. In that moment, a heavy sadness settled over me as I realized that I was no longer the master of my own life. I had surrendered my freedom to a system that did not ask for my consent. It simply expected compliance. And once you give up your independence, it becomes almost impossible to reclaim it. You begin to adapt because you have no other choice. You stop questioning why dinner is served at a fixed time, or why a simple walk outside requires permission. In learning to fit into their system, I slowly began to lose the essence of who I once was. If you're considering a nursing home, I urge you to ask yourself, are you ready to let go of the small freedoms that define your identity? Because once they are gone, you may find yourself mourning them more than you ever anticipated. As the days turned into weeks, another painful realization took hold. The world outside the nursing home continued to move on without me. When I first arrived, my family had promised frequent visits. My daughter assured me that she would come by every week, and for a while, they did. My grandchildren would visit on weekends, filling my heart with joy and briefly bridging the gap between my old life and this new restrictive reality. Those moments of connection, however, soon became increasingly rare. Over time, the frequency of visits diminished. My daughter, once a constant presence, began to rely on phone calls. My grandchildren, caught up in the busy whirlwind of school, work, and other commitments, could no longer make it as often. I found myself alone during the holidays, a time that should have been filled with love and togetherness. Instead, I sat in a common room, watching as other residents stared longingly at the door, each silently hoping that today might be the day someone remembered them. It wasn't that my family had stopped caring. They loved me, of course. They always had. But the reality is that when you are physically removed from the daily fabric of their lives, it becomes all too easy for them to assume you are coping just fine, even when deep down you are struggling. I remember one particularly lonely evening, sitting in the dim light of my room, clutching my phone, and debating whether to call my son. I was afraid to impose, afraid to remind him that I was there, waiting alone for a visit that might never come. So I set the phone down, and in that quiet moment, the full weight of isolation hit me. I began to understand that in a place where you are kept apart from the world, loneliness can become a constant, crushing companion. Another aspect of my new life that I had never anticipated was the slow erosion of my sense of purpose. Before moving into the nursing home, every day held meaning. The small tasks of daily life, watering my beloved plants, preparing my morning coffee just so, tidying up the space that I had so carefully curated, gave my days a rhythm and a sense of direction. Each of these seemingly insignificant activities contributed to a larger tapestry of purpose and self-worth. I took pride in these rituals, knowing that even the simplest of tasks was a testament to my ability to care for myself, and in the nursing home, however, those rituals vanished. Meals were no longer a product of my own efforts, but were instead delivered by someone else at predetermined times. Cleaning was taken care of by a staff member, and even the act of opening a window to let in fresh air became a rare occurrence. At first, I tried to convince myself that this newfound ease was a blessing, a chance to finally relax after years of constant responsibility. But as the weeks turned into months, the emptiness of that freedom began to weigh heavily on me. My days started to blend together into a long, unremarkable stretch of time. I would sit for hours staring out of the window or watching the clock tick by, all the while feeling a profound loss of purpose. I wasn't the only one suffering this way. I observed many of my fellow residents, once lively and full of energy, now reduced to mere shadows of their former selves. One man, who had spent decades as a dedicated carpenter, had his hands, the very tools of his trade, rendered useless by a life devoid of creative outlet. I recall him sitting silently, his eyes lost in thought, murmuring softly, "I feel useless." Those words echoed in my mind, reinforcing the heartbreaking truth that when you no longer have something to care for or work towards, life itself loses its meaning. Before moving in, I prided myself on my ability to take care of my own health. I was not an athlete, but I maintained a simple routine that kept me active and independent. I would take daily walks, cook my own meals, do a little shopping, and even engage in light stretching exercises in the morning. These activities might have seemed trivial, but they were the foundation of my strength. They allowed me to remain self-sufficient and, more importantly, connected to the simple joys of life. However, once I moved into the nursing home, I gradually lost that ability to care for myself. At first, the convenience of having meals brought to me and assistance available at the push of a button was a relief. But what I didn't realize was that by doing less for myself, I was inadvertently setting the stage for a rapid decline in my physical health. I began to move less and less. My legs, once strong from years of steady walking, grew stiff and weak. I found that simple tasks, such as getting up from a chair or walking across the room, became increasingly challenging. It was as if the very act of relying on others for everyday activities was slowly eroding the muscle and energy I had built up over decades. I watched with a heavy heart as this decline was mirrored in the lives of many around me. People who had once been vibrant and self-reliant began to require the use of walkers and eventually wheelchairs. I remember my neighbor, a spirited woman named Alice, who had arrived full of determination to defy her age. In the early days, she would take brisk walks around the facility, insisting that her age would never dictate her pace. But over the course of a few short months, I saw her progress from independent walking to needing the support of a walker, and finally, a wheelchair. One afternoon, as we sat together in the quiet of our room, she looked at me with tear-filled eyes and confessed, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I've aged 10 years in just a few months." Her words resonated with me, underscoring the cruel irony of a place designed to ease life, actually hastening the physical decline it sought to prevent. If only I had known how quickly inactivity would rob me of my strength, I would have fought much harder to keep moving, pushing myself to take even the smallest steps each day. If you're considering a nursing home, please ask yourself, will you still have the inner drive to keep your body active when everything is set up for convenience? Because once you slow down, reclaiming that lost strength can become an almost insurmountable, perhaps the most invasive and heartbreaking change I experienced was the gradual loss of privacy and dignity. For most of my life, I had cherished my personal space, a haven where I could retreat from the world, think in solitude, and perform even the most mundane tasks in peace. At home, I could close my bedroom door, savor a moment of quiet, and live entirely on my own terms. In the nursing home, however, that sanctuary was stripped away almost immediately. From the moment I arrived, I felt as though I was constantly under scrutiny. Staff moved in and out of the rooms with regularity, and scheduled room checks meant that there was rarely a moment when I was truly alone. Every aspect of my daily life became a performance for an audience I had no choice in. Even the most personal activities, dressing, bathing, and even using the restroom, transformed from private acts into moments of exposure. I knew that the staff were only doing their jobs, but accepting help for tasks I had managed independently for decades was a bitter pill to swallow. The loss of privacy extended beyond just the physical space. Sharing a room with someone you didn't choose can be incredibly challenging. I was fortunate to have a roommate who was kind, yet even her presence was a constant reminder that I no longer controlled my own environment. Over time, the loss of privacy and the erosion of dignity weighed on me like a heavy shroud. I began to feel less like the person I had always been and more like just another resident on a roster. If you're considering a nursing home, please reflect deeply on whether you are prepared to sacrifice the personal space and dignity that have defined your life. Once they are gone, reclaiming them is a battle that few ever truly win. I once clung to the hope that my stay in the nursing home would be temporary, a trial period after which I could return to the life I had always known. I believed that if the reality proved too harsh, I could simply leave and reclaim my independence. But I soon discovered that this decision was not as reversible as I had imagined. In the beginning, the idea of leaving seemed straightforward. I envisioned walking out of the facility and returning to my old home, a home that, over time, I would have prepared to welcome me back with open arms. But the passage of time, combined with my declining physical state, made that dream increasingly unattainable. My once familiar home began to feel distant. The place where I had built a lifetime of memories now stood empty, its contents gradually being sold or given away by my family, who assumed that I would never return. The more I depended on the care provided at the nursing home, the more I lost confidence in my ability to live independently. My children, though loving and concerned, made decisions on my behalf, decisions that further eroded my chances of ever reclaiming my old life. When I broached the subject of returning home, their hesitant responses only reinforced my growing fear that once I had settled into the routine and dependence of the nursing home, the door back to independence would close forever. I encountered others who had experienced the same fate, residents who had initially believed that their stay was only temporary, only to find that the longer they remained, the more insurmountable the barriers became. In some cases, financial constraints, physical decline, and the gradual dissolution of personal connections made the possibility of returning home not just difficult, but impossible. If you are considering a nursing home, please ask yourself whether you are truly prepared for the possibility that once you cross that threshold, leaving may become an impossibility, a decision that, once made, may redefine the rest of your life in ways you never imagined. As I reflect on these experiences, I cannot help but feel a deep, abiding sadness for the independence, connection, and purpose that were slowly stripped away from me. I do not regret growing older. Aging is a natural part of life, and every wrinkle and gray hair tells a story. But I do regret the notion that a nursing home was the only option available to me, that I had to trade my autonomy, my personal space, and the vibrant routines of my life for a structured existence that left me feeling isolated and diminished. My journey has taught me that while nursing homes can offer a level of care that some may need, they also come with profound sacrifices. The very things that make life meaningful, our freedom, our daily rituals, our connections with those we love, can be lost if we are not careful. If I could offer any advice to those who are standing at this crossroads, it would be this: explore every possible alternative before surrendering your independence. Seek out ways to receive the care you need without sacrificing the essence of who you are. There are options that might allow you to maintain your routines, to preserve your personal space, and to continue living life on your own terms. Consider in-home care, community support systems, or assisted living arrangements that prioritize your dignity and autonomy. The life you have today, your routines, your independence, your choices, is priceless and worth fighting for. Now, as you listen to my story, I hope you take a moment to reflect deeply on the choices you face. If you or someone you love is considering a nursing home, please ask yourself, is this truly what is best? Or is it merely the easiest option at the moment? Do not be seduced by the promise of convenience if it means paying the price of losing who you are. Instead, consider all the facets of your life, the small freedoms, the daily rituals, the intimate connections with loved ones, and weigh them against the convenience offered. The decisions we make in our later years can shape our quality of life in ways that extend far beyond physical comfort. I want you to know that sharing my story is not an attempt to disparage those who choose or need to live in a nursing home. There are situations where the level of care provided is absolutely essential. And for those individuals, a nursing home might indeed be the best option. But it is crucial to be aware of the trade-offs involved, the loss of independence, the potential isolation, the gradual erosion of personal purpose. For me, the choice came with a price that I had not fully comprehended until it was too late. As I continue to live with the weight of these regrets, I am also filled with gratitude for the life I had and the lessons I've learned. Every decision, no matter how difficult, offers an opportunity to grow and to understand more deeply what truly matters. I hope that by sharing my experiences, you might find guidance and clarity when facing your own decisions about aging and care. There is wisdom in knowing that life is precious not because of its length alone, but because of the quality of every moment we live. Cherish the freedom you have now, nurture the relationships that enrich your life, and never lose sight of the things that make you unique. I thank you for listening to my story, a story of regret, yes, but also one of hard-earned wisdom and the enduring spirit of independence. If my words resonate with you, if they stir a desire within you to fight for your autonomy or reconsider the paths before you, then my hope is that you will take these lessons to heart. Share them with those you love, discuss them with your family, and always remain true to the core of who you are. I invite you now to reflect on your own life. Think about the routines that give you comfort, the small freedoms that define your individuality, and the connections that make your days brighter. Consider the decisions you face as you look to the future, and ask yourself if you are prepared to let go of what makes your life uniquely yours. Remember that while the promise of care and convenience may seem alluring, it is the vibrant tapestry of your daily life, the choices you make, the routines you cherish, the personal touches in your environment that truly matter. Thank you for joining me on this journey of reflection. I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Please leave a comment below, sharing one thing you learned today and how you plan to apply it to your life. Your insights and stories not only inspire me to continue sharing my own experiences, but also help build a community where we can all support one another in making the best decisions for our futures. If you found this video meaningful, please consider liking it, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who might be facing a similar decision. Your support is what motivates us to keep creating content that informs, inspires, and connects us all. I look forward to reading your comments and continuing this conversation with you. In the end, aging is not something we can control, but the choices we make about how we live our later years are within our power. Choose to live with dignity, maintain your independence, and hold on tightly to the things that make your life uniquely yours. Remember, the freedom you have today is a gift. Cherish it, protect it, and let it guide you in every decision you make. Thank you for watching, and I sincerely hope to see you again in the next video as we continue exploring the truths of life, love, and the enduring spirit of independence. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for